mute, Dirk. You have to unmute. You have to, yeah.
Yeah, now it's have to work normally. I'm Frederic Maas, General Manager of ESPORG, and I would like to thank you for joining us this second webinar. We are fortunate to have some excellent guest speakers with us today to talk about standards, policies, and for funding for safe and secure truck parking areas. There are still some questions with regards to these topics. We also like to showcase two of our members who became self-funding and share with you what they have learned going to processing of preparing submission of their project for the call. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mrs. Ines Maillart from DG Move. The floor is yours. Ines.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Ines Maillart. I'm a policy officer at the European Commission DG Move in the Road Transport Unit. I'm following the file of safe and secure parkings, and I'm currently working on the standards that we are preparing following the adoption of Mobility Package 1. I will now upload my PowerPoint presentation to give you an overview of our work and where we are at and the next step. Okay. Christy, if you can just confirm that everybody can see my slide, that would be my screen, sorry, that would be great.
It's perfect.
Okay, let's start then. So let's start with the update in the context of Mobility Package 1 and the Green Deal. As you must, I'm sure you know, we have the three legislative acts of the Mobility Package 1 that were adopted and that entered into force this summer. One of this legislative act, and the one that we are more interested in today, it's Regulation 2020/1054, that amending our Regulation 561 of 2006 on driving and rest times. So this new revised regulation entered into force and start applying on 20th of August 2020. In this regulation, we have a brand new article that gives a legal basis to develop EU standards on safe and secure parking. So what does it mean? It means that the Commission can adopt a delegated act that will detail every standards that the EU safe and secure parkings will have to comply with. So this will have to cover the level of service, the level of security, the different levels of security of safe and secure parking areas for trucks, and also the procedures for their certification. The brand new article that I was talking about, we can see that what is very important is that in the legislation we already have a list of criteria that the Commission needs to respect. So what needs to be done to be available in the Delegated Act is its requirements for intrusion detection and prevention, lighting and visibility, emergency contact points and procedures, gender-friendly sanitary facilities, food and beverage purchasing options, communications connections, and power supply. Then the work of the Commission and what we are doing, and I will update you on this at a later stage, is really from those broad criteria going into detail and detailing every single requirement for the level of service and the level of security. What is very important also is that the co-legislator, they included some recitals or provision to really keep in mind that those standards should cater for better access to alternative fuels in line with the policies developing that infrastructure. You can see also that there are criteria of power supply, so there really a push from the co-legislators to include those these green aspects, I would say, in the safe and secure parking areas for trucks. So now we'll just give you a brief overview of the Green Deal. I will really not go into detail, but just so you understand, the broad context on how safe and secure parking areas can contribute to the main policy objective of the Green Deal. So as you all heard about, there was a Green Deal that was launched by the European Commission with several aims. One of it is designing a set of deeply transformative policies. If we look a bit closer, we have like a series of measures, objectives that the Commission wants to reach. You can see, for instance, supplying clean, affordable and secure energy, mobilizing industry for clean circular economy, a zero pollution ambition for toxic-free environment. We also have, if we look even more into detail, we have like really set like precise measures that have been put forward. You have, for instance, revise the CO2 emissions performance legislation for light-duty vehicles by June 2021. You have policy around sustainable alternative fuels. There's really this momentum about greening also mobility. And if we look really into even more detail, we see that a key objective is the decarbonization of heavy-duty vehicles. So there are targets to reduce the CO2 for the fleets of new trucks by 15% by 2025 and by 30% by 2023. So obviously, what is important is to keep in mind that the decarbonization of trucks goes hand in hand with the appropriate infrastructure. If you do not have electric charging station, or if you do not have possibility to refuel hydrogen, then you cannot deploy this fleet of electric and hydrogen trucks. So parking areas will play an important role in the future on this. As said, I mentioned hydrogen trucks, electric trucks. So for the moment, there is no magic solution. We do not know exactly what will the future look like. We know that there are many possibilities: electricity, hydrogen, and we really need to keep that in mind for the future. What is key is we need to prepare today to understand that this will be a reality in the upcoming months, and that the standards on parking should help, and the financing from the European Commission could also play a big role in that. So just a conclusion on this first introduction about the objective of Mobility Package 1 and the objective of the Green Deal. When we are working on the standards, in the expert group, we really keep in mind those objectives. So the objective to improve working conditions of drivers. They should have access to appropriate facilities. I should say also make road transport, the loads that are carried by road more secure, thanks to the safe and secure parking areas. And also how to prepare, how to take the changes brought by the Green Deal into account. And as I said, to prepare for electric trucks, hydrogen trucks, and also think about, things we can already work on today, such as integrating electric plugs for refrigerated trucks. So now I'm going to move to the presentation on the service and security levels and VU standards, really explaining to you where we are and also the work we've been doing in the expert group and the next steps of those standards. So what is key, and I cannot stress it enough, is that the starting point of those standards is the 2019 study that was carried by the Commission in partnership with really the main stakeholders in the sector, and that really came up with a clear overview of what we need when we talk about safe and secure parkings, and that also worked a lot on the standards. So what drivers need, what they want to find at safe and secure parking areas, and also what the companies, the transport undertakings, want to find in safe and secure parking areas. So the different levels of security, obviously, depending on the loads you carry, and all the associated services. So to start with, the common level of services, as I said, the drivers need to have access to all the necessary facilities when they stop at a safe and secure parking. So here we're talking about basic minimum level that is common to all levels of security. So as I said, there are different levels of security, but no matter what it is, those basic requirements for service apply. This is emergency contact points and procedure, gender-friendly sanitary facilities, food and beverage purchasing options, communication connections, and power supply. For the we have also the 4 different levels of security: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So here is an overview of the services you can find, like the pictograms that you can find on the safe and secure parking, and that, as I said, summarize the basic requirements. So showers, water taps, food, beverages, internet connection, and personal electricity plugs. Here is really the detailed list of everything that is in this basic level of service for the moment. So you see that the toilets should be gender friendly, the showers also. The importance of these facilities to be clean and checked at regular intervals. You should have water taps, waste bins, clear signs, emergency contacts, the possibility to buy snacks and drinks 24/7, very important, when internet connection available, and electric connection if drivers, for instance, wants to charge their phone. So when it comes to the levels of security, as I said, it's 4 levels, so ranging from bronze being the lowest to platinum the highest. So you have bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. The levels, in the way they are presented in the study, are cumulative. So it means, that everything you require for the lowest level is also applicable to the highest levels, on top of obviously additional requirements. The security standards are structured around 4 main categories: security of a perimeter, security of a parking area, security of the entry and exit points, and the staff procedures. Here is the little logos of EU parking and classified according to the level of security. And here is the full list of standards. So I will not go into detail one by one, but as I say, it's classified by perimeter, parking area, entry and exit point, staff procedure. What is very important to see is really when you move from one category to another, you obviously have a strengthening of the requirement. If you take an example, for instance, of a perimeter, when you're at bronze level, you are only required to have a visual deterrent to recognize the secure parking area. But then when you move to silver, this becomes a physical deterrent. When you move then up to gold, then we're talking about physical buoy with minimum height. And then for the platinum, you have an extra requirement that there must be deterrence to climb over. And this is really the same logic that applies through all the criteria. If we take also the parking area, you have checks that must be done at a certain frequency. So the frequency is once per day in the bronze level, but then it's twice per day and one at daytime, one at night in silver. Then for gold, the on-site or remote staff must be contacted 24/7. And then when you are at the platinum level, the site must be manned or video controlled. Then we have exactly the same reasoning for entry and exit points. Here you don't have really barriers at bronze level, but for those entry exit points, but then it's a requirement under silver. And then when you move to gold, you have this additional requirement to have under climbing, over climbing. And then when we move to platinum level, we're talking about gates with additional system like license plate recognition, checking the tickets, so really a high level of security. And for the staff procedure, you also have additional requirements, really targeting specific situation in case of disruption, for instance, of electricity in the parking area for the highest level. Okay, so now we can talk about the certification. So it's also an aspect we will talk about in our expert group. Why do we need certification? Obviously, because there's a need for transparency and certainty for users. Who can perform this mandatory certification? It must be an external auditor to ensure that he is independent and qualified. We always say that the cost is insignificant compared to an investment, so it doesn't cost so much to get certified. It's important to note that both security and security levels are required to be audited. And then at the end, the safe and secure parking receive the audit certificate. So you must be wondering where we are at with this standard. So as I said, we're working on the standards of the study as a basis, but there's some work to do. So we had a first discussion on the standards on the 20th of November. I must say that it was an extremely productive and constructive meeting. We made a lot of progress. And what was our work? What did we discuss? We really focused on the technical standards only for this first meeting. And really the aim was to make those standards legal. They need to be translating in legal terms, to be well formulated and to be presented in a legal format. So this is what we discussed. We worked on the definitions. We really made a lot of progress in making this closer to a delegated act. And what we also did was to make sure we included all the requirements of Regulation 561/2006, so the list of requirements I showed you. And also to clarify some concepts, maybe not legally, but just making sure we're talking about the same thing. So what are the next steps for this standards? So thanks to the very good feedback I received during this first meeting, I will work on a revised draft of the EU standards. I'm collecting the comments at the moment, and I will share a new draft with experts in January 2021. As I said, the first meeting focused only on the standards, but the next meeting will certainly also include a part on the certification procedures. So it will be the first discussion really of the inclusion of those provisions in the Delegated Act. Our aim is still to adopt these standards in 2021. It's a top priority for us. In the future, for the future CEF funding calls, it will be those standards in the Delegated Act that will be really the point of reference. For the moment, it's still the study. And maybe as a conclusion, I think really one of my main steps is to keep the momentum. The work in the expert group has been really, really good, and we need to share this information about EU standards and its success in events such as the one we're having today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Ines. That was a wonderful presentation. And if it's okay, one of our participants has a small question to ask you. So I'm going to let them ask you really quickly.
Yes, thank you, Ines. It's Fuensanta Martinez from ASEA, the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. I have one question, and please forgive me if it is very basic, but for me it needs clarification. So you refer to the recital 15. Regarding the standards, that the standards may be revised for a better access to alternative fuels or something like this. But then if you go to Article 8A, there is nothing on alternative fuels. So what does it mean in terms of timing? Does it mean that this better access to alternative fuels element is going to be reconsidered, but at later on, not in the current standards? If you could clarify this, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this very relevant question. So it's true the recital makes a clear reference to alternative fuel and also the possibility to address this issue in the alternative fuel directive, basically. So this is for sure a possibility. Another possibility is to address it under the criteria of power supply. I mean, hydrogen will be a power, for instance, so this can be done. But as I said, and it's really important to highlight it, nothing is set in stone. It's really the first discussion we had. So we are not talking about really clear ideas to include in the standards at the moment. It's something that will need to be further discussed in the expert group. So unfortunately, I don't have really a clear answer to give you, but we are looking at the different options that are offered to us, that's for sure.
Okay, and we are going to move on to our next presenter. If you have more questions, feel free to email them to me, and we will handle them at the end, because I see some people have their hands raised. So please email me your questions. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next presenter, Frederic Maas, who's the delegate of the ESPORG board. So go ahead, Frederic, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Do you see my screen, Christy?
Yes, it looks great.
Wonderful. Great. So good morning, everyone. I will make it very brief because we have some very interesting examples of these EU-funded projects that were just all of them that we at least know of were the grant agreements were signed just now in the last weeks. So this is pretty good news, and we wanted to share a little bit with you. Maybe looking into the future, if when there is a next possibility to get some funding, what are the lessons learned, and then present you two projects. So the application deadline was at the end of February of this year, and a total of 11 CEF projects were approved, with a substantial number of new or upgraded parkings being built. We had discussions with 8 of these projects. We are very pleased that all of the ESPORG members that applied directly or were involved in consortia that applied received a positive evaluation. So the message is it's possible to be successful with these type of projects where you get EU funding. The first lessons learned after the discussions we had is that the indicative time to grant was basically around 9 months. If you count the submission deadline in February and you look at the signature of the grant agreement that was for most projects at the end of October earliest, most of them in November. So that is a reasonable timeline. The notification came in July of those projects that were successful or not successful. So we're happy to have all of the ESPORG members that applied being successful. We would like to encourage also for the next rounds, whenever they will come up, those who want to apply for funding to consider it carefully and to think about if this is something that could help you in your project. The second thing we saw, and you can see it's publicly available in the evaluation results, that overall the budget cuts remained limited for these projects. So a limited number of budget was only cut, which is also very nice because it basically means that the applicants can go on with the projects as originally foreseen and in most cases. The lessons learned, so we did a little survey among the successful applicants and now beneficiaries. The lessons learned are quite simple. The first one is design a sound global project. If you think about your project idea as a small piece of a puzzle, you should describe the big puzzle to the evaluators. So when you apply, make it clear what the purpose is, either of this singular parking, or if it's embedded in a larger project, show your master plan. Show what you want to do, show how you want to develop it. Don't just say, hey, I have a parking and I want to get some funding for this. I have some idea, I have some land. It's not enough. We really need to build the puzzle. So that is important as a first lesson that basically we got from all the projects. Really show the big picture, think about it, and also quantify it. Show your targets, your objectives, your KPIs, your financials for this global project, looking at a longer horizon. For smaller companies, this might be a challenge, but it's something, if you think about applying it sometime in the future, you can already start putting this documentation on paper. This will help a lot. The second point, it's important to think of all the legal and contractual matters at a reasonable level of detail before handing in the application. Of course, not everything can be put on paper. This is not possible to settle all the issues. But a lessons learned is think about an ex-ante analysis carefully to know about all the permits, all the authorizations that are required, any legal question, be it in intercompany question or a question towards authorities, that might be a stumbling block towards implementing the project. Because nothing is more frustrating than having a great application, having it validated, being ready to sign the grant agreement, and then something comes up that is more of a legal or, let's say, permit nature, where you say, hey, we didn't settle this, so now we will need some time and we will need to do this ad hoc. So it's important to think about these things early on. If not possible to settle all of them, use the time between handing in the application and the evaluation result. Yes, this is a risk phase. You don't know if you will be selected. But if you make a reasonable assumption, if you look at the success chance this year, it was a little bit below 50% maybe for the good projects. It's not so low, so it's really reasonable to work at the feasibility also during the evaluation phase. Don't lose time there. The third lessons learned was to formulate a realistic cost-benefit analysis. In this call, the Commission asked for a cost-benefit analysis for over 30 years, which is a very long investment, and many infrastructure providers that we talk to are not used to that, still make the effort, look at the cost-benefit analysis, both from a financial and from a socioeconomic point of view. It's worth it. And this will require some connection with the global project we talked about before. So it's really important to have a real business case there. And that should ideally not be developed just 4 weeks before handing in the application. This is something that must be there. It should be a master plan that you already have. If you don't have a master plan for your company, for your project, it will be difficult to get the funding. So start working on this, even if it's at a sketchy level. This should be well developed and well documented as well. Then the fourth lessons learned is that you need sufficient flexibility to adapt your project implementation plan. To give you just one example, yes, it is true that the grant agreements that have been signed now are based on the current standard. But if you listen to what Ines just said in her presentation, this standard will be embedded in a bit different legal framework. And then the challenge will be for the parking projects that you still need to get the certification when the projects are ending, which is in 2022 or 2023 for most of them, as we heard, or even a bit later. So then this will be something that has to be adapted when the new, the slightly modified standard maybe will be embedded in a different legal framework. Keep enough flexibility to adapt to the requirements, and that will of course be then a discussion with also the INEA, the EU agency. But this is important for the beneficiaries to keep an open mind and a certain flexibility also on the timeline. So be realistic on this already when you plan the application. And then, well, our message from ESPORG is, of course, study and understand the EU parking standard and its evolution. This is very important already at the application phase to have a clear view of what the requirements of the EU parking standard is. This is a feedback we got from some applicants that they said, we were not in detail in all these things. Now, but just try and make sure that you really understand the standard, because this will structure a lot of the elements that are key for the evaluation as well. Which brings me to the final part of this presentation. If you look at the 4 building blocks of what makes a successful application, according to that, we're really talking about the 4 main evaluation criteria: quality, relevance, maturity, impact. Is the project as such a qualitatively high project? So does it make sense? Is it viable? Is the ex-ante analysis conducted correctly? Do you have a good global project? Yes or no? Is the project management plan realistic and credible? How is the budget? Is it something that you can justify and demonstrate or not? Second, is the project relevant? So the location is key. Where is the project? Is it relevant for the TEN-T network of the European Union? Is it at a good location? Is it a good spot? Do you expect a significant amount of business? Is there a real need? So all these things, of course, must be documented. I say this because sometimes it's not so easy. You need to find objective arguments and industry studies and do focus group analyses. So this should be done in the master plan in the ex-ante analysis. And we have some people in the call here from the transport industry. Ask them also to confirm that your location and your project are viable. Then we have the maturity. Is your project sufficiently mature? Do you have the necessary permits? Do you have the necessary pre-studies? Has everything been prepared? If it's just an idea on a white piece of paper, don't apply. You need to be sufficiently mature and developed. And then the final point, the impact. Will your project have a sufficient leverage effect? Is it appropriate at the level of bronze, silver, gold, platinum, whatever? Is the impact credible? And for that, by the way, you can use the study that the EU co-funded, the European Commission, because there you have a lot of useful elements where parking areas are needed. So this was my 2 cents, just to resume the discussions we had with the applicants. We're very proud that so many of them got the funding, and we wish them good luck and success with the ongoing projects.
Okay, thank you so much, Fred. That was great. Then we're actually going to show you 2 of our projects, if that's all right. We're going to start first with one in Spain. Unfortunately, the coordinator couldn't be with us today, so I'm going to show a video.
First of all, I would like to thank you in name of BDAGI the chance you give us in order to introduce ourselves and our project concerning 2 secure and safe truck parks. We are building those parking areas along the highway near the French border. BDAGI is a public company that belongs to the government of the province of Guipúzcoa. BDAGI is a 100% public company. Our income resources come exclusively from the payment for the use of high-capacity roads and services. We are located within the Basque Country at the west border of the Pyrenees Mountains between France and Spain. Here in BDAGI, we keep working in order to provide a safe and secure drive to all drivers traveling through our province, and that's why it is the time to invest in services oriented to truck drivers. In the last 18 years, BDAGI has invested €1.400 million in the construction of new highways and in the upgrade of the existing ones. The project that brings us here today is a strategic objective for us. We work with the assurance that the social, economic and environmental benefits generated by these infrastructures and services will be positive. January 2022 onward, we will be able to provide a comprehensive service oriented to the driver's safe and secure rest, with the appropriate parking for trucks and security for both merchandise and the carrier, thanks to the 2 truck parks located next to the border with France. We will equip the highway with 505 new safe parking spaces and services according to the requirements and needs. As members of the European Secure Parking Organization and according to the European standard, we will provide services within the gold level requirements. Those secure and safe parking places will be interrelated and will be equipped with restaurant, coffee shop, market, toilets and showers, recreation areas, TV room, laundry services, Wi-Fi and services oriented to early pre-booking. One of the truck parking lots with 16,000 square meters and 190 spaces will serve south direction and will be located at 8 kilometers from the French border. The main one with 315 spaces and over 26,000 square meters will serve north direction and will be placed within 15 kilometers from the French border. Access to both parking lots will be done directly from the AP8 highway without leaving it. As you can see in the images, we are in the construction phase of the platforms. Before the end of 2020, we will proceed to the construction of the service building and the installation of the required facilities and equipment. The investment required for the 2 truck parks will represent a total cost of €18 million. It is a really mature project that has been on the table for a long time. The project matches 100% with the European Road Transport Mobility Guidelines. This is why 1 million out of the total cost have been admitted as eligible cost by the European Authority, and we will get an 18.2% grant out of them. Construction work started in September 2019 and will end by December 2021. We would like to thank the European Commission, the Innovation and Network Executive Agency, and the European Secure Parking Organization for their kind attention and useful support we received from all of them. Thank you for the chance to present our project. We hope to see you soon.
Okay, so that's one of our projects. And here to present a second project is one of our ESPORG members from Cia Vista, Alexander Petrash. Alexander, if you want to pull up your presentation, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to do it. Okay, so it works now. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's up now. Go ahead.
Okay, nice. First of all, dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alexander Petrash. I represent company Visa from Latvia. Our project name is deploying safe and secure parking in Latvia and upgrading an existing one along the North Sea Baltic corridor. Few words of appreciation. I would like to express my gratitude to ENEA agency for evaluating and approving our project for co-financing. We are grateful also to the Ministry of Transport of Latvian Republic for accepting our project and for their support. Big thanks to Latvian State Roads for their support and data shared. We are very grateful to ESPORG organization, to Mr. Dirk personally, for support and organizing such important events like this one today. And thank you also to Concilius AG. It's a consultancy agency that is on board of our project and are very professional in their field. Well, in comparison to the previous presenter in NVIDIA, our company is a private company. It's very small. We have only 14 employees. We were established in 1992, and we have started to operate an existing secure parking in Latvia since 2013. So this new project was very important for us, and we have been preparing it for a long time. Regarding the project, well, we have a parking which is located in the city of Adaži. It has approximately 90 parking spaces. The project will help us to expand this parking up to 20 parking spaces. So it will result in 110. And we are building a completely new one from scratch in the city of Bauska, which will be able to host approximately 100 heavy trucks. We are aiming for the gold security level of EU parking standard. All the parkings will be connected to the DATEX2 data transferring and to ITS. And we will be serving high service level to the clients of our parking. In the Bauska, which will be built from scratch, 450 trucks. I will not go in details here, so I will just move. This is how it looks like right now, just a field which will be developed sooner or later, well, in 2021 to be precise. And this is how it will look like. This is the projection image. And the same is for the parking in the Adaži, which we have right now. Don't be puzzled with the positioning of the vehicles. It's just a preliminary idea to host 110 vehicles there. It may change. So this is how it looks right now. You see there is no surface, I mean asphalt or whatever. So we have been using it for quite a long time, and it's the first parking, the first secure parking, which is located in Latvia. And this is how it will look after the project. The second parking will be complete in 2022. Well, this is the map. There are 95 kilometers in between the parkings, so it corresponds to TEN-TEC regulation of 100 kilometers in between. These were the introductory part, I would say, but I guess a lot of you would like me to share the experience that we had, because being a small company and totally unexperienced in the field of projects like that, we had to learn a lot, and I can share a few points with you. These four major criteria were mentioned by Frederic in the previous presentation. So the relevance, the quality, the maturity, and the impact, which are very important to all of the projects. We'll go in details to each and every one of these points and say my thoughts and then share my experience. So the relevance of the project, well, which is very important in the way that the location is important. For us, both our parkings are located in a close proximity to the TEN-TEC corridor. I say it's a very important thing, and being so close to the corridor will make your life much easier. First of all, it will help as a recognition and as advertisement to your parking place, because the trucks passing by, sooner or later they will see some constructions going, and they will be looking for the information and then planning their roads accordingly. So the transport flow is very important as well. You can get the statistics of amount of transport crossing your point where you're planning to build your parking. And there is also a study on safe and secure parking available, which was mentioned many times today, and has a lot of relevant and interesting information like demand on parking in different places, like bottlenecks and so on. A letter of support from the transport companies is a very important thing, which will increase your score. So if you have already a client base, don't be afraid, contact them, ask them for a letter of support, which you can add then to your project, and it will be a major point when your project is being evaluated. And also this is your advertisement as well, and you will get these clients sooner or later to your parking. Then the quality of the project is also, I could say it's the most important thing, because out of our experience, we have participated in call, in CEF call in 2017, where we submitted our first project and it failed because of this quality part. Well, the business plan is important. If you don't have the business plan, try to write it, because you will need it at different stages of your project. For instance, these parts that you need to fill in when applying to CEF funding, you can break down your business plan into many parts and use these parts later on to fill in the application forms. Financial capacity, it's also important, because well, for us being a small company and in the Eastern Europe, it was quite impossible for our own strength to pull out such project. So the feasibility study is very important. Whether we can pull it off, what support do we need, how our cash flow will allow us to complete the project and so on. Please look into these things, which are, well, important. Cash flow projection is important. How your finances will come, how the co-financing will come, how everything will line up, and whether you can pull it or not, because it's very relevant to know things like that before applying, even before applying. Because your project may succeed, may be selected, but then you will have a lot of problems with your cash flow projections, and you will not be able to fulfill the project, which I guess nobody would like to have something like that. And well, the completion milestones are also important. So the length of the procurement procedures, length of the construction project. Please look into these things as well. First of all, for us, based on our experience, the procurement took more than we expected in time. We could have been prepared before, but we were unexperienced, and it made some complications. The length of construction doesn't mean that your territory will be constructed in 1 year, let's say. Half of the year may be only the project, a building project, and all the things that need to be done before. So take that in account as well. Well, the maturity of the project is important phase. For instance, land purchase. We didn't know when we submitted the project, and we submitted the project under the cohesion envelope. There are differences there. That part of our land can be considered as an eligible cost. So please read carefully the eligibility of costs that NIA provides when submitting your project. Well, get the permissions in time, the building permit, if you have some old buildings on your territory, the demolition permit, because it takes time. It's sometimes really hard to get these permissions. I don't know, by one problem or another. So take a look at that as well, and be prepared. And well, get the support of state authorities as well in time. Get the support of ESPORG because they are proficient. Get the support of consultancies if you don't think that you can pull it off by your own forces, because everything can damage your score in the maturity, and your project may not succeed. Well, the impact is also important. This is the part I took off from the study of safe and secure parking areas. For instance, you can see whether your location is on the heavy corridor, which requires a lot of parking. Look into that as well, because that's an important issue to look into. And think globally, like Frederic said, don't just think about one parking, think about more parkings that you are going to expand later on, because we are aiming here, everybody is aiming here to the reduction of road crimes, to the reduction of accidents on the roads, and making drivers safe and happy, because their work isn't easy enough, and we're trying to affect it somehow and make their life easier. So regarding the questions, I don't know if we have the time right now, but feel free to contact ESPORG, and they will share my email address, so you can send your email to me directly, and I will try to answer everything. Thank you very much to everyone presented today, and best of luck with your projects.
Thank you so much, Alexander. That was really, really helpful. Thank you so much for speaking. Now, I will remind you that I will send the recording to anybody who wants it afterwards. And now, if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to ask. I know Hans Beaver, you just sent me an email. So if you want to unmute and ask, feel free.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. Well, great to hear all the presentations. It's good to hear about all these new projects. My name is Hans Bevers from Nomad Power. I had a specific question for Ines. I was just wondering, specifically relating to the inclusion of charging infrastructure for trailer refrigeration units. Is it your intention to include this into the new standards? And if you're including it, at what type of level are you thinking of? Is it really at the basic level? Or are you just trying to aim for the higher levels there?
Thank you, Hans, for the question. I mean, we don't, as I said, we had a really first discussion, so we definitely didn't agree on what would be the way, but it's true that there would be really a wish to have the refrigerated, these facilities for refrigerated trucks on in the standards. In how this will be presented, it's really something I cannot tell you now, because this will be done in coordination with the expert group to see how this makes sense. But you're obviously welcome to liaise with me at a later stage after this meeting if you have suggestions.
Perfect. Okay, I will do. Thank you.
Okay, and if anybody has any other questions, you can go ahead and ask. Just so that not everybody's talking, maybe put your question in the chat first. We'll give maybe 1 minute for people to ask, and if not, of course, you can email me, email anyone from the ESPORG organization. If you have a specific question for Alexander or Fred or for Ines, we will get it to them. Yeah.
Christy, I saw there was a question in the chat from Paul Mayo. If you want also me to say a few words about this. So the question was, how can applications for funding go ahead when the standard is not yet finalized? So you need to know that so far in the CEF calls that took place, the standards from the study was clearly the point of reference. So it was put black and white that safe and secure parking should be certified to the standards that were in the study. This will change when the delegated act is adopted. So when the standards become legal, then there will be a reference to the standard in the legislation. But you see, it doesn't prevent, if the standards are not adopted yet, it doesn't prevent for parkings to keep getting certified according to EU standards. As I said, the content will be really true to what was agreed in the study. We are not revising the criteria in depth. They were thoroughly thought with by the sector. So in that regard, the funding can continue, and you can already think of future projects using the standards from the study. That's for sure. It's a really good point of departure. Yeah. You're muted, Christy.
Keeps muting. Sorry, my microphone doesn't want me to talk. Thank you so much, Ines. Does anybody else have any questions? I have some that were emailed to me that were very long, and I will handle those via email if that's okay. So if you emailed me and it was a long question, we'll handle that via email. If anybody else has a question? Okay, then I think I'm going to hand it back to our general manager, Frederic Maas.
Hello, I want to thank everybody to attending this webinar. I think it is a great success when you're seeing the participants we are in. I would also like to thank active presentations and speakers for an excellent presentation. However, if you have further questions, like Christy said before, send her a mail, we're going to answer. Also, like mentioned before, the recording we are going to send you, Christy is going to send it. And further, keep safe, stay safe, and stay corona free. I would say in these days they are not so nice as have to be. Okay, I wish you have a nice weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.